Thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. I'm Neeraj Shah, and China's central bank has cut rates. So that's the big development this morning. But the US stocks crept higher as traders prepared for a week that includes the interest rate decisions from major central banks. S&P 500 advanced about 0.5%, Nasdaq about 1.53%. So good going really for the world markets. Remember, European market also were mildly okay. I would suspect that the Asian screen would be looking positive this morning, so it's not bad news at all. From a market's perspective, things are not looking all that bad. Now, what's the major news flow around the world? Well, the near-term inflation expectations have hit a two-year low in the Fed survey. Apple shares closed at record in latest sign of big tech's dominance. Oil prices settled down 4% on jitters ahead of the US Fed meeting. And Australia consumer sentiment is now near recession lows after the latest hike that they have done. So, well, a bunch of things happening around the world, so to say, when it comes to global news flow per se. So keep that in mind. Like I said, most markets are doing okay. Symptomatic of what's happening in the sector that you can was just that. It spoke a lot about the policy changes that are effective, which might help. Okay, excuse me, viewers. There was a bit of a faux pas at my end. Some video on my phone, which is a podcast that we do early morning, just started underway. Nevertheless, the other news flow, strange things can happen. The other news flow, Cuba has begun the Moscow tour to deepen ties amidst the economic sanctions. Tesla chargers win more backers as its plug becomes the US standard, and that's a big one from an auto industry perspective. And India has imposed stockpile limits on wheat to dissuade hoarders. So that's the other big thing. Now, the SGX Nifty, I would reckon, should be showing some signs of mild optimism, about 0.27% higher. So that's not bad news. At the moment, the Indian macro data has also looked okay. CPI at 4.25, which was lower than expected, very likely can rise here on. April IIP growth at 4.2% is better than expected, and manufacturing is growth 4.9% YOY. But well, most people believe that the cooling CPI data faces a reversal risks on poor rains, and that really remains the clear and present danger from a crop perspective, from a CPI perspective, and thereby from a market narrative perspective. I would suspect that people will not call lower interest rates in India in 2023 just as yet. So what's the trade setup for the day? Well, simply what I said, that the lower inflation print is likely short-lived and therefore unlikely to bring a lasting cheer to BFSI. And I would certainly believe that markets are unlikely to take a large directional move ahead of the Fed decision tomorrow. Mid-cap financial services, though, are building up OI in the last 1 week, and amongst other pockets, remain a space to watch. Yesterday saw a bunch of these stocks, M&M Financial, some of the others in the liquid space. I think Shriram do very well. So is it a start of a big up move? Remains to be seen, because the OI build-up certainly suggests that market participants were building this up. Positions are done. The stocks have started to move. Maybe there is more in store. Let's wait and watch. Okay, FI sold about 626 crores and DIs bought about 1793 crores. So that's the fund flow situation for yesterday's session. Now, after 2 days of buying, some bit of selling that has come in as well. What about stocks to watch? It's an interesting list. I've not included brokerages as yet. So just the news flow first. I'll mention about the brokerages at the end of trade setup, but first the news flow. So Inox Wind and Inox Wind Energy are the first ones off the block. 158 shares of Inox Wind will be issued for every 10 shares of Inox Wind Energy. The warrants issued as well, 158 warrants of Inox Wind to be issued at a price of 54 each for every 10 shares or warrants of IWL with an issue price of 847. The warrants pricing is almost at par, no changes there. But the swap on Inox Wind and Inox Wind Energy heavily skewed in favor of Inox Wind Energy Limited, the parent holding company. The difference is, to my mind and my math, of nearly 25%. I would suspect that you would see Inox Wind shedding some weight today, Inox Wind Energy gaining some gains today. So there could be a two-way move. In effect, for every person who's holding the shares of Inox Wind, it just makes absolute sense to just swap to Inox Wind Energy as long as the price movement doesn't reduce the parity of 25%. So I would suspect that they'll be selling in Inox Wind and buying Inox Wind Energy, unless of course both the stocks open on respective circuits. I might be wrong, but I don't think I will be. So watch out for Inox Wind, a bit of a downtick today. Watch out for Inox Wind Energy, a bit of an uptick today. Then Z Entertainment. SEBI's banned Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka from holding a director or key managerial personnel in any listed company or its subsidiaries until further orders. SEBI's directions come after they found that Subhash Chandra and Goenka siphoned off funds for their own benefits from the listed entity Z Limited. This might have multiple implications. Now, so hear me out, viewers. Two things out here. One, does this impact the merger? There's no clarity as yet, but the belief is, or could be rather, that the bodies which are opposing this deal could invoke this material development as one more point of opposition. So far, Z Limited has been able to kind of withstand all forms of opposition. Could this be something that is difficult? Part two, I think for the merged entity, unless I'm wrong, Puneet Goenka was supposed to be the CEO of the merged entity. Now that he's been barred from holding any key managerial position in any listed company or its subsidiaries until further orders, uh, could that therefore be the development that might impact the merger? Or, well, it could well be that the merged entity says that, okay, we're not keeping Puneet Goenka as the CEO of the merged entity, we'll have somebody else. So Sony team might come out and say that. Remains to be seen. I don't think there are clear answers to this question as yet, whether the merger gets impacted, but the market in its wisdom might believe that, hey, maybe the merger does get impacted. There's uncertainty now and material uncertainty that creeps in, as a result of which, uh, you know, something like this could happen. Now, what is Virat trying to say? Yeah, it is the order, right? They created a facade through sham entities to misrepresent the investors as well as regulator that money had been returned by associate entities. Any just the point that I was trying to make. So there's material uncertainty, I think, that comes in the minds of the markets, at least today, if not going ahead. And therefore, I would suspect that at 9:15, we will see a bit of a reaction, a negative reaction to Z Entertainment. Now, a person best placed to talk about this is Karan Taurani. He will join in at 8:30 a.m. on Trade Talks to talk about this. So do tune in for that. I believe my colleague Payas Swini will actually examine the legal side and the implications of this later on in the day. So it's a material development and a material conversation that people might want to tune in for that as well. So watch out for Z Entertainment. Remember, it's a very cheap uh, from a P multiple perspective or an EV EBITDA perspective, not a very expensive stock, but there are issues like these which will keep investors at bay. Adani Ports and maybe even GPPL, but Adani Ports has said, of course, that there's halting of work, and the ports in Gulf of Kutch have largely halted work on the cyclone warning. Maybe there's a bit of a reaction to these stocks. I know that Adani Ports has given a statement. I haven't seen a statement from Gujarat Pipavav, but I'm just mentioning it because since it's in that Gujarat belt, maybe sentimentally it could get impacted as well. So do watch out for that as well. Now, JSW Steel is the other stock in focus. It's been granted the mining lease for iron ore mineral mine in Goa. Block 6, Kudnam Kormolem mineral block, 9.77 million metric tons of resources. Grant for Block 9, Surla Sonshi mineral block with 65.73 million metric tons of resources. So the stock has been on an uptrend in the last couple of days. Some more good news. Order wins for Engineers India. It's won an ONGC project worth 472 crores. HFCL won an order of about 81 crores from Delhi Metro Rail Corporation. And SJVN, 200 megawatt wind power project from Solar Energy Corporation of India with tentative cost of 1,400 crores. So the material one seems to be for both Engineers India, but SJVN for sure. HFCL, It's a small one, really nothing that material. So bear that in mind. What else? Yep. Remember, I mentioned about stock limits on wheat has been imposed in March 2024. So maybe positive news for the ITCs, the Britannias of the world. So that's to be kept in mind. The Economic Times is reporting that the government has told Chinese handset companies to get Indian equity partners and also appoint Indian uh, contract manufacturers. So the likes of Dixon, Optimus Infra, etc., might be in focus. There is, yeah, residential prices have increased in Mumbai and Delhi as per TOI. Uh, Maybe some of the listed real estate players might be in focus as well. So that's to be kept in mind. I was just trying to see if there is a City India strategy note apparently made several changes to mid-cap picks. Apollo Tires, ACC, Delivery, PB FinTech, etc. have been added. They've removed Ashok Leyland, Federal Bank, IGL, and Phoenix Mills. So that's to be watched out for. Those stocks have to be watched out for as well. Some brokerage notes. Yeah, so the Hero MotoCorp Investor Day, and most brokerages are saying that they are, I mean, neutral. There's focus on premiumization, but except for Motilal Oswal, Nomura, for example, has remained neutral, so no big changes there. Philip Capital, their target price is 3359, so about 15% higher. New CEO strategic plans to drive growth for Hero MotoCorp. So that remains in focus as well. And yep, I think Jeffries in their investor feedback note on industrials has come back fairly positive. There's a lot of demand, they are saying, for L&T, Power Grid, Siemens, Thermax, and Delivery. They've seen interest, and Jeffries is highlighted, Concor and TCI Express amongst others in that pocket. So that's an interesting one to monitor as well. So bunch of stocks and things to monitor. There is a question about whether Nasdaq and Indian IT Connect has withered off because large cap IT hasn't quite rallied along with mid cap IT as yet. Um, you can argue that you're seeing evidence of that, Shankar, that there is telltale, uh, simple. I mean, you don't even need anybody to answer that. There's a bit of a correlation that is broken off for maybe the right reasons, because there are headwinds around IT because of the largest clients, which are banks, right? So the correlation is definitely broken off. Now, does it become a pocket to buy into? Well, remains to be seen. Yesterday, we spoke to Bhaven Shah of Samiksha Capital, uh, who spoke about how large cap IT faces headwinds. And remember, Bhaven was a key sell side IT analyst. Today, we have a conversation with Siddharth Bhaiya of Equitas. And I think I'll ask this question to him for large cap IT as well, and maybe even for mid cap IT. So if that gives you your answer, you may want to tune in. But yes, the correlation certainly has been broken. Somebody's asked about a question on sugar stocks and the outlook thereof. Well, most smart investors are logging into sugar simply because if Balram, if this is a El Nino year, and if sugar prices stay high, you know that ethanol is anyways a steady business, and if sugar prices are not coming off, then that adds to the business optimism around the sugar names. A lot of companies' capacities are on stream in full ways, in proper manner, and therefore they will benefit from higher capacity utilization for the ethanol plants in in FY24, and that might help earnings too. So you'll have to do your bit about which company could do well, which company could do better than others. I would suspect that in most cases, I think sugar stocks could do okay. Remember, also bear in mind, I think save for one or two, most sugar companies have actually consolidated in the last few. So I would suspect that there is a fundamental case, earnings-led case, or the fundamental case for earnings to do well. Now, how well the stocks could do, I will ask this question to, let's say, Siddharth Bhaiya today, or guests over the course of this week. So you might want to tune in for that. And of course, we'll also talk with Umesh Chaudhary of Titagar Wagons about well, not fundraising plans. They've already raised the funds, but what do they do with the funds? So that will be an important conversation today. And like I said, talking point, Siddharth Bhaiya, Equitas, business outlook and Jimny launch, 7 p.m. with Sashank Srivastava. So that could be an interesting, and of course, trade talk and stocks in focus with Siddharth Kemka as well as Aditya Agarwala. So I want to tune in for those. Thank you so much for tuning into the trade setup. 8:30, we do a conversation with Karan Torani on Z I believe that becomes one of the most important conversations pre-market. We tracks media and Z very closely. You might want to tune in for that.